the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Rachel Zegler, she's an asshole.
You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White, right? You should shut up.
Rachel is literally the star of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim, and that
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
What happens when rising stardom meets backstage friction? And everything comes undone. This isn't just another headline about a famous face stirring up trouble. What's unfolding here is something far more complex. The dramatic unraveling of a major Broadway production. And right at the core of the turmoil, Rachel Zegler, once praised as Disney's rising star, now finding herself in a completely different narrative. Zegler, who gained acclaim from her breakout performance in West Side Story and was chosen to portray Disney's next Snow White, is now facing an unexpected twist. She's not being criticized by reviewers or targeted by online rumors. She's been quietly edged out by those working closest to her own castmates. What was intended to be a triumphant revival of Evita, a show rich with history, heart, and dramatic flair, has shifted into something else entirely. It's now being viewed as a behind-the-scenes cautionary tale. Multiple individuals familiar with the production say interpersonal relationships became strained to the point where the energy backstage turned unhealthy. And once it reached a tipping point, the creative team took decisive action. Their lead actress was quietly removed from center stage. Tonight, we're going beyond the polished press releases and official statements. We're examining the real events, the tensions, decisions, and consequences that transformed a highly anticipated musical into something far more controversial. This is the inside story of a show that began as a celebration and ended up becoming a case study in what happens when personal dynamics go unchecked. This isn't about gossip, it's about accountability, collaboration, and what happens when an ensemble decides enough is enough. Join us as we explore how a promising theatrical comeback turned into one of the most talked-about shakeups in recent Broadway memory. When Rachel Zegler was cast as the lead in the revival of Evita, it was hailed as a pivotal career moment, her big return to form. Following intense public backlash tied to her role in Disney's live-action Snow White, many viewed this as her opportunity to reset the narrative, to demonstrate her range and remind audiences of her talent. Zegler herself described the experience as a creative rebirth, and major entertainment publications echoed that sentiment. She was celebrated as a fresh, fearless interpretation of a timeless figure. On social platforms, fans shared edits and performance snippets of her rehearsing Don't Cry for Me Argentina, casting her as a flawless fit for a reimagined Eva Perón. Rachel leaned into the buzz. She posted stylized rehearsal photos in monochrome, quoted emotional lyrics in tweets, and helped build the momentum behind the idea that she was meant for this role. There was a sense of destiny being fulfilled, of a performer stepping fully into her power and legacy. But beneath the surface of the media spotlight, things backstage were already becoming strained. While Rachel was winning hearts online, those close to the rehearsal process reportedly saw a different side. According to multiple accounts, she wasn't simply inhabiting Eva Perón's character. She was reportedly making substantial changes to the show itself. And that shift didn't sit well with everyone involved. Rumors spread that Zegler began influencing key aspects of the production, including how scenes were staged and how certain moments played out. Rather than a collaborative environment, some insiders described the atmosphere as increasingly focused on her personal interpretation. What had begun as a team-driven project started to feel more like a solo performance in the eyes of a few colleagues. The shift wasn't outwardly obvious at first, but murmurs began circulating within the cast and crew. For a revival meant to celebrate shared artistry, tensions began mounting, quietly but unmistakably. From day one of rehearsals, a quiet sense of unease started to spread backstage. According to those familiar with the production, Rachel Zegler's entrance wasn't the poised or polished debut that many had envisioned. Reports indicate she arrived late on multiple occasions, prompting concern and quiet frustration among fellow cast members and crew. But punctuality issues were only part of the story. Behind the scenes, sources say she frequently pushed back on creative decisions, especially when it came to choreography. She was said to challenge movement choices and offer alternatives that better fit her personal portrayal of Eva Perón. One major point of contention reportedly involved wardrobe. Zegler is believed to have requested major changes to her costumes, advocating for a look she felt better aligned with a narrative of female empowerment. These suggestions, while rooted in a thoughtful perspective, were viewed by some on the team as disruptive to the original vision. As rehearsals continued, crew members began expressing their frustrations discreetly, via side remarks and off-the-record conversations. One person involved allegedly referred to her as the most intense lead they'd worked with, noting that the working environment felt increasingly tense as rehearsals went on. Then, the situation began to draw wider attention. Clips, seemingly taken during practice sessions, started to surface online. Though unofficial, the footage appeared to capture awkward and strained interactions. In one video, Zegler seemed to interrupt a director mid-discussion. In another, she was seen leaving the stage abruptly during a dramatic scene. But the most talked-about moment came from what was described as a particularly impassioned declaration. "I am Eva." The delivery was so forceful that even seasoned cast members reportedly didn't know how to respond. That's when whispers became something more. Her nickname within the company, Hurricane Zegler, began to stick, a reflection of both her strong presence and the disruption many felt she brought with her. But this wasn't just another behind-the-scenes conflict. What followed wasn't speculation, it was action. This time, the cast didn't keep their concerns to themselves. What came next was not just backstage buzz, it was collective pushback. The turning point came during what should have been one of the production's most impactful scenes. A new Argentina. The orchestra launched into the score, the cast moved into position, and the energy on stage was high. But then, something unexpected happened. In the middle of her performance, Rachel Zegler reportedly stopped cold. Sources say she was frustrated by a recent change in stage direction, one she hadn't agreed with. And right in the middle of the song, she allegedly exclaimed, "I'm done with this circus," before walking off the stage. The entire rehearsal room froze. What had been a typical afternoon of run-throughs turned into a moment of collective disbelief. That shocked pause didn't last. One cast member, still in costume, reportedly muttered under their breath, "She can't stay." That offhand comment, quiet but firm, became the catalyst. The frustrations that had been building for weeks finally broke the surface. This time, instead of enduring more chaos, the company decided it was time to act. According to those involved, cast and crew began to keep track of their experiences. They started documenting alleged disruptions using their phones, collecting footage that seemed to highlight a growing pattern. Stagehands and performers alike began making detailed notes after rehearsals, logging each moment where the process derailed or group morale dipped. What had previously been scattered complaints slowly turned into a structured timeline of incidents. Eventually, the team compiled everything into a comprehensive document, a 10-page report that included personal statements, specific timestamps, and descriptions of moments that they felt disrupted progress. The tone was serious, and the message was clear. The working conditions had reached a breaking point. What made this document so significant wasn't just its contents, the number of people who backed it. Nearly half of those involved in the production reportedly signed their names in support. And the comments inside didn't hold back. One section read, "Rehearsals feel unstable. It's no longer about preparing a show. It's about adapting to one person's unpredictability." But the most powerful part came at the end. This wasn't just feedback. It was a clear, coordinated demand. The message to producers was unmistakable. Something had to change, and it had to happen immediately. Imagine this: a confidential meeting held away from the spotlight, with stakes higher than ever. Select members of the cast sat across from top producers, their voices steady but filled with urgency. The message they delivered was simple but monumental. "We can't perform with her leading." That statement sent shockwaves through the room. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a line in the sand. The production team now faced a critical decision: keep their headline star and risk losing the core ensemble, or make a drastic casting change that could redefine the entire show. The clock was ticking, and the atmosphere was tense. Behind the scenes, everything went into overdrive. Rehearsals came to a halt. Schedules were cleared. Phones buzzed with non-stop updates. Leadership scrambled, trying to find a path forward as word of the standoff slowly spread within industry circles. Meanwhile, the figure at the heart of the chaos, Rachel Zegler, seemed to disappear entirely. No updates, no messages, no appearances at rehearsals, just silence. In her absence, however, the production didn't freeze. Without any formal announcement, her understudy stepped forward. Calm and prepared, she delivered a performance that changed the mood in the room. There were no disruptions, no requests to alter the material, just a confident, emotionally rich interpretation that earned immediate praise. The difference was striking, and the shift in energy backstage was palpable. For the rest of the cast, the message was unmistakable. We're moving forward, without her. Even as things began to stabilize in the theater, another storm was beginning elsewhere. Because while the cast tried to restore order on stage, the conversation online was just getting started. Fans, sensing that something wasn't right, began piecing things together on their own. Social media lit up with speculation, edits, and timelines. Clips were reshared. Theories circulated. People started asking questions, and the answers weren't coming from the official channels. This wasn't just a backstage shakeup anymore. It had become something bigger, a public investigation, unfolding in real time across millions of screens. The show might have tried to keep moving, but online, the drama was just beginning. TikTok lit up like it had caught fire. Within just a few hours, the platform was overflowing with videos claiming Rachel's been replaced. And the numbers climbed into the millions almost instantly. Content creators jumped into action, breaking down the situation moment by moment. Some edited together rehearsal clips with suspenseful music, while others made direct comparisons between her stage presence and the rumored backstage challenges. Meme culture wasted no time either. Timelines were flooded with jokes portraying Rachel as a once-loved internet figure who took things too far. One viral caption read, "Evita? More like center stage commander." Soon, social media sleuths got to work. Digging into her past posts, users rediscovered a tweet featuring Rachel in a sparkling crown, proudly writing, "They'll dislike me for this too." The old post resurfaced fast, but this time, it struck a different chord. A top reply, short and sharp, read, "Mission accomplished." And just like that, the narrative began to spiral. Even the musical's official pages couldn't dodge the wave of attention. Eagle-eyed fans were quick to point out that images featuring Rachel had quietly vanished from the production's feed. Promo clips were taken down, and mentions of her in show descriptions were noticeably missing. It didn't take long before trending hashtags began circulating. Hashtag Rachel replaced, hashtag Evita returns, and the more pointed hashtag support the cast. Meanwhile, while the internet buzzed louder than ever, Rachel's presence went completely silent. No tweets, no updates, no behind-the-scenes glimpses. For someone who had been consistently posting lyrics, rehearsal shots, and emotional captions just days before, the sudden stillness was striking. She offered no response, no public remarks, nothing. Just radio silence. And that absence, it only made things more intense. The online community didn't just notice, it analyzed it. Her disappearance became its own mystery, adding fuel to the already raging conversation. People didn't just want answers, they expected them. But Rachel stayed quiet, and with every hour that passed, the digital noise only grew louder. Here's a truth that rarely gets said aloud, especially in the theater world. The stage remembers everything, and it doesn't have much patience for off-script drama. Once the decision was finalized, the aftermath moved quickly. Rachel's name disappeared from the show's printed materials. No announcement, no explanation, just wiped clean. Her dressing room? Cleared within a matter of days. Her belongings were boxed up, the nameplate taken down, and it was as though she had never been part of the cast at all. Taking her place was the understudy, once relatively unknown, who's now stepping into the spotlight with ease. Multiple sources close to the production say she's thriving in the lead role, delivering stunning performances without any of the backstage complications. The atmosphere offstage also shifted drastically. A staffer reportedly remarked, "It feels like we finally got fresh air in here." The stress that had been brewing from weeks of behind-the-scenes issues, missed entrances, mood swings, and headline-making behavior, evaporated almost instantly. Breaks are now filled with laughter, call times are being respected, and the whole room feels different. Pressure lifted and everyone could finally exhale. But while the production moves forward with renewed energy, Rachel's next chapter feels unclear. Her long-awaited Snow White film? Put on hold with no release in sight. The buzz surrounding her role in the Hunger Games prequel? Gone quiet. And as both theater insiders and film executives seem to be stepping back, her once sky-high momentum now seems to be slipping. At the time of writing, her social media has stayed untouched. No captions, no stories, no hints about what's next. To many observers, it's starting to look like a steep professional drop. Because the takeaway here isn't just about one role or one show. It's about a hard reality. Skill can get you noticed. But when attitude becomes the headline, those open doors can close fast. Let's ask the question no one's really answering. Was Rachel Zegler truly cancelled? Or did she quietly write herself out of the script? Let's be honest, this wasn't a viral takedown fueled by hashtags or a pylon from online commentators. It didn't stem from anonymous trolls or sensational media coverage. The fallout didn't start on the internet. It began in the rehearsal room, among the actors and crew who stood beside her on stage. The people who clocked in daily and watched the project they cared about slowly come apart, piece by piece, under the strain of one person's conduct. This wasn't about calling someone out. It was about drawing a boundary. The production team reached their limit and took a united stand. They weren't willing to sacrifice the entire performance to accommodate one personality. It wasn't personal vendettas or petty squabbles. It was about salvaging what they had built, protecting the vision, the hard work, the emotional investment that goes into live performance. And here's the twist that no one can miss. Evita didn't crumble without her, it flourished. With the lead role recast, the show has regained its pace and purpose. Ticket sales are strong. Critics are responding positively. And those close to the production say it finally feels like the revival it was meant to be, energized, united, and grounded. So if you thought this chapter was finished, think again. Because in live theater, an exit doesn't mean the story's done. It just means the next scene is about to begin. Whether Rachel's return to the spotlight involves a rebrand, a redemption arc, or simply a slow fade from center stage, that part remains unwritten. But one thing is clear, she hasn't left the public eye. Not entirely. And when she does reappear, whether on a screen, stage, or social feed, the audience will be ready, watching, waiting.